Anticipation, man. Everybody been waiting for you, Will, to come on the show. But guys, we're here. New era energy and digital, man. There's a lot of exciting things that's been going on, man. I've been reading about this company so much, and what they're doing and what they're going to do is going to be crazy. And I really look forward to it. But I want to introduce my guest on the show. Is Will, the CEO, the chairman. Will, go ahead, just take it off from there, man. I'm too excited to speak right now.
Kenny, listen, it's been great, just shooting the bull with you, and just part of casual Friday dress today. It's just we're in the office, kind of working, having some good news today. So yeah, lots going on here at the company. Obviously, we were able to put a press release out late today that was notifying shareholders of our compliance with NASDAQ, and I think, for any smaller company, I mean, listen, we came from a pretty rough background regarding, we de-SPAC'd, right? So any de-SPAC, I mean, it's just, I got the scars to prove it, the therapy bills to prove it, been there, done that. And like most de-SPACs, you're going to fall. It just depends how far do you fall. And we fell pretty hard. And, luckily we had a really opportunity to pivot away from our core business. So obviously we went public as New Era Helium, right? And the helium has obviously natural gas. And so, our background historically has been oil and gas in the Permian Basin. So, but what's kind of fun about our background is if you think about the Bitcoin mining sector and how they've done that is obviously through power generation. And so when I look at our gas field, our helium field, we don't look at it as gas reserves. We look at it as gigawatts. So people are like, well, how are you all of a sudden into power? And like, we're not really, we're not new to power. Sorry. We've owned the fuel stock for power for 5 years, and that's what we do. And so we have to understand, how do we make this gas? Do we make it better sounding, at selling it as gas molecules in the pipeline, or transforming them into electrons? And it's a pretty simple answer, Kenny. You make a lot more money selling it as electrons than you do as gas molecules. And so that's the arbitrage. And so then we kind of took it a step further, and we said, okay, so we kind of looked at some of the companies that we admire. Obviously, listen, Wes over at APLD, he's been on your show a number of times. Applied Digital, phenomenal company. I mean, so I get a lot of times, you're like, Will, when you look at your peer groups, who do you aspire to be one day? Obviously, what Wes has built, that's one. We just had the recent IPO from Rick Perry and Griffin, his son, which is Fermi. That thing IPO to what, 15 billion, ran, I think, north of 30 billion on the IPO. What they're doing up in Amarillo, Texas, we're no different. And so I think, when you start looking from company to company to company, obviously APLD is, I mean, they're so far along, obviously, with what they've done with CoreWeave and how they're doing powered shells. And so we look to emulate that. So, we look at our acreage that we own, that we're developing here in West Texas and Ector County. And, same thing. Do we focus on powered land? Do we sell, powered shell? And for us, if, let's just say, powered land, you could sell it, make a lot of money, but it's more chunky revenue, right? So so you may make a couple $100 million in one transaction. These sites, Kenny, they're not just like a dime a dozen. Because think about, because everyone's like, oh, I'm next to a gas transmission line, or I have access to water. I'm sorry, there's a lot that goes into this. So you really kind of have to reverse engineer how you pick your initial site. So you're talking about fiber. Where's your fiber corridor, right? So obviously we look at fiber light. So you think of Stargate and Abilene. So Abilene's 2 hours from our site, right along I-20. We're on the same fiber corridor. So we kind of check that box. We're about 1.8 miles away from I-20, south of I-20. So to gain those easements to our site, not a problem. Water, we look at desal from existing oil production using water of that nature. So we have all the water, but obviously, you start looking at closed loop systems for cooling mechanisms and things of that nature. So some of the newer designs for data centers maybe are not as water intensive as they used to be, but you still got to factor in, the power facilities, power plant require that. So you just have to be cognizant of that fact, right? And I think one thing else is air permitting. I think what people are really missing is that is one major thing. So I think a lot of your subscribers look at, hey, oh my gosh, there's this new plant going up. It's a 5 gigawatt facility. So think about what 5 gigawatts truly is. 1 gigawatt can power Denver. So to me, it's like, listen, that's a lot of electricity, right? And so from an air permitting perspective, you also have to understand how you site, the data center in relatively to speed to power. So speed to power is, for us, is behind the meter. And so really, for your audience, behind the meter is basically just kind of a power island. You do it yourself. You don't rely on the grid. And I think what's interesting is, for our company's sake, what's interesting is one of our former board members was the chair of ERCOT, and ERCOT is the grid for Texas. And unfortunately, he had to step down because there was a conflict of interest when we kind of shifted from, the helium, a pure play helium, to AIM.
100%. And he decided to stick with you guys. So that's
no. Well, no, he couldn't. Unfortunately, as being chair of ERCOT, that was a conflict of interest, so he had to step down. But Kenny, he taught us so much about the Texas grid, and you just sit there and you listen to him, and also his, the other, the administration that monitors ERCOT, right? And so we're at 87 gigs across the state on ERCOT. And what's interesting is I think there's 200 gigawatts of demand that's being applied for. So think about that. Where is that coming from? If 87, and that's a lot of electricity. So that's why there's such a delay to get a grid connectivity. And I can't speak for other parts of the U.S., whether it's, in Virginia or the Midwest or even East or West Coast, but for Texas per se, it's a long wait time. And so obviously hyperscalers, it's speed to power, power to energize, right? And that means you better go do it yourself behind the meter. And I think what's really interesting was there was a clip on CNBC yesterday with the CEO of NVIDIA, and he actually brings up behind the meter. I would highly recommend that you go find that clip on CNBC and put that up, because that's the first time that's been referenced. So when he's talking about behind the meter power, that's a big deal. And something else, Kenny, what's really interesting is, so also in the state of Texas, they just passed new law. It's called SB 6, State Bill 6. And what that states is that any data center that is being currently built that is connecting to the grid has to have behind the meter backup, because in the event of a brownout, they're the first ones to be curtailed. And the problem is these data centers, they need 99.999% uptime. I think the statistic is every minute that a hyperscaler is down, every minute it's $1 million loss. So what they're looking for is some sort of redundancy, some sort of, what they call 3 nines, 5 nines redundancy, resiliency, right? How do you ensure my facility is not going to be shut down? And so that's why they like the grid. But to me, it's like, the grid can shut down too, by the way. I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I think we've all been
a part of a blackout, definitely in New York City.
Well, listen, with her, with Winter Uri in Texas, we were out without power for days. It happened. So you can't control that. And so as a hyperscaler, you look for opportunities and you look for developers that understand that. So what we do specifically, so like for instance, our site, okay, just because you said, hey, listen, let's check the boxes. We got to have fiber. We got to have water. You got to be in what they call an attainment zone for permitting. So an attainment zone means you can go to 250 tons of emission profile, which is, if you're using clean engines, that's about 400 to 450 megawatts. That's a minor source air permit. That's 10 days to 90 days to get. If you go above that, you're going to a major source air permit, which is almost 2 years. So to me, what we do is more powered islands that we can get, that we know that we can get, knocked out. But again, looking at kind of all the different dynamics of siting, the data center, I mean, all of this has to come into play. You've got to think about all of these things. But
Yeah, and I see that, and I see that you guys have different ways of making revenue, which is phenomenal. What really I think really starting to really set you guys apart is like that 235 acres that you guys have. Like, am I correct about saying that? I think I see you guys acquired 235 acre. Is
yeah,
that
so right now so we own outright 235. That's recorded. That's in our name, right? And then we have
yeah,
another 203 that we're closing on within 60, 90 days that we have a secured
that's
option.
phenomenal. Like, to
Yep.
me, that is great asset because you're pretty much in control right there. You have
Yeah,
full control.
we own the land, and so ideally, when we close on the second tranche, that's 438 acres. And so, I mean, to have, we could do 2 powered islands on that acreage and still be under minor source air permitting. And so, right now, we're kind of through, part of our phase 2 engineering is we're working with a large data center developer that that works with the Mag 7 guys, right? Because you go to the top ones, is what you do. We all know this. You pay for what you get.
Yes, correct.
What we're looking to
Correct.
do is cram as much rack space into one place as possible. So that's so it's going to be a two-story type data center facility. So we can just cram as much, like I said, much rack space in there as possible. But Kenny, one thing else I think that needs to be noted here is, so one, we have a great team, and so when you, again, from my sports background, you really got to understand it's a team effort. It's not the Will Gray show. This is a team effort, which is amazing. And so one thing that we really look to is, again, that redundancy, that resiliency, right, on the power for the hyperscalers. So what we're doing is we have access to 3 pipelines, natural gas pipelines. And just because a data center or developer says, "Hey, we have access to gas," I'll be the first. That's my background. So you understand the midstream aspect of these gas transmission lines, and you have to understand: are they interstate lines? Are they intrastate lines? What's the size of? What's the diameter of the pipe? What's flowing through there? What's the capacity? What is actually firm offtake? Because a lot of this gas goes down to LNG on the Gulf Coast. So just because it's got gas in there doesn't mean you can necessarily pull it off. So so our particular location, that 438 acres, we have 3 gas lines right there that we actually will tap. And so, because listen, these transmission lines also shut down for planned maintenance. So you have to take that into consideration. So that's why there's, again, redundancy. So when you talk about behind the meter, it's not just, hey, I got a gas transmission line next door to me, I'm going. It doesn't work that way. And so I really think, because I didn't, it's funny, I didn't realize all this, before I started getting into all it. So it's just, but it's not rocket science. It's understanding, it's just planning, right? So with any business, you have to plan for contingencies. And that's all this is. You have to plan for outages. And how do you protect your hyperscaler tenant from being shut down? Because if they are shut down, no one's making money. Because it's like you talked about how our revenue source will look like. So for instance, we have the powered island, we can have a PPA by creating electricity. Ideally, if we have the powered shell, then obviously we're releasing out rack space. I don't think that we're positioned to operate the data center per se yet. We got to grow up a little bit first. But I think to have a tenant come in there and essentially operate it would be phenomenal.
But like, let me fully understand. So you're trying to basically own both sides, right? The power generation and the data center with the real
Well,
estate.
it's interesting. So for the first one, okay, so for our first one, we brought in a group this is public, called Thunderhead, and they're private equity backed. So they would come in, they would provide the capex to fund that, and then we would get a small portion of the PPA. But ideally, they would own and operate that facility themselves. Now, with our additional sites, once we're properly capitalized, then we'll do that ourselves.
Great. That's really good.
Yeah.
So where do you see the, like, tell me what the next 2-3 quarters look like. What should we be looking out for the next 2-3 quarters as investors?
Man, that if I had a penny for every time I got asked that question, because that's about the best question ever. Ideally, so milestones is we're pre-FID right now on the engineering side.
Yeah.
So meaning, but part of the pre-FID is also fully disclosing who your tenant is. It's like, listen, you can't build it until you know you've got someone subscribed up. And so obviously
100%.
yeah, so we're wrapping, we have made tremendous headway in identifying who we want to be long-term partners with. I mean, we've spoken in talks with a number of people. We have an LOI out there as we speak with the hyperscaler. But yet, a lot of it, we're trying to better understand, do we just want to, flip the land and do a powered land sale, or do we really want to just lean into it and do powered shells and really be like APLD and be like what Wes has created with his company? And I think that's what we're leaning towards, because that's more of a smooth revenue stream, as opposed, again, like I said earlier, like more of the chunkier ones, because again, these sites are so difficult to come by. So you really just don't want to just go flip it for a couple $100 million and say, okay, then what? That doesn't do much. That doesn't do much good. So for us, we want, continual revenue, kind of like an MLP type structure, right? So we just kind of just cut and paste, rinse, repeat. And, we do have additional sites identified, by the way. So it's not like this is just some one-off. And, the first one is with, again, we had mentioned this. It's a joint venture with, so Texas Critical Data Centers is a 50-50 joint venture with Sharon AI. Sharon AI is a neo cloud provider in Australia, operates, utilizes NVIDIA chips over there. So, they have a very good grasp of the business from that perspective, which is really nice. And so, having, again, from a team effort, it's complementing your strengths and your weaknesses. They're not West Texans and understand how to get the gas out of the ground, the power. So that's what we do. So we have their expertise on the data center side. They operate rack space right now and they own it. And so we understand what those economic models look like. And that's why it's so enticing to do it ourselves.
Yeah, no, I really like you guys are not really renting anything. You guys are owning everything. Definitely in a race, the AI race. Energy is going to be really huge. And I feel like right now we're using so much energy to power all these pretty much AI data centers. Even ChatGPT is saying that they're using so much energy. It's crazy. And you're trying to go both sides. I see a big future for your company, owning both sides. Definitely if you already have the land next to the pipe. So to me, is that 1 GW, is that going to be the template for the rest of the country? Are you, after you really build your facility, you build out Texas, is it Colorado next? You know what I mean?
Well,
is it
honestly, this is our backyard. And so it's kind of like, why would we want to go somewhere unless we end up acquiring someone else that's already existing, that's private, but I think for us, it's kind of, you just stick with what you know, right? And so we've got in the Permian Basin, I mean, one of the largest energy fields in the world. Why would we go anywhere else? It's like, and there's plenty to do here. And that's the one thing that we've looked at is too. So, I think what was interesting is people were like, well, no data center is going to go, into some sort of rural area. And I'm like, do you think Abilene's some major metropolitan area where Stargate is? I'm sorry, it's 2 hours away. I've been to Abilene my whole life. Sorry, it's just, our ranch is like 45 minutes from Abilene. I'm sorry.
Yeah. There's people those people just don't flat out just don't know. That's all.
Well, yeah, and it's funny. And so I keep getting a lot of naysayers like, well, no one's ever going to come to Midland. I'm like, why not? I mean, so what's interesting was CoreWeave just did a deal with the Helios facility in Post, Texas. And if you don't know where Post, Texas is, it ain't anywhere near a metropolitan area. I mean, it's literally in the middle of nowhere, somewhere near Lubbock, Texas. And you're thinking, why in the heck fire would CoreWeave site a facility here? It's because everyone's doing cloud, right? So everyone automatically thinks AI. You think cloud, right? I think maybe a couple of years ago that was my first inclination.
Yeah, correct. 100%.
I didn't understand, the differences of what there's AI and then there's digital, right? So there's language law, there's learning language models, there's inference, which is simple search. There's cloud, there's neo cloud. So you have this full spectrum of different mechanisms that these hyperscalers are doing. And some need what they call quick speed, like boom, like clouds, right? No one's going to wait to get on, you want access to your data right now. But from a latency perspective, let's say you're on Chat GPT and you type in something. Why is Marathon Money so popular, right? You type that in and just the little wheels turning, wheels turning, wheels turning. That's your latency. That's what's taken so long. So is that actually being generated in post Texas? So we don't know these things, but obviously, the land's cheaper out here versus in Dallas. So if you have a 5 millisecond latency from Midland, Odessa to Dallas, Texas, that still falls under what, some hyperscalers are willing to accept for inference. And, and actually everyone has a different margin on their product as well. Clouds have different margins. Inference has different margins. Language learning models have different margins. And so why would I go spend all this money for, if I have a, lower margin type deal that doesn't necessarily need to, be as speedy as possible? Why not come to Midland?
Yeah, I could honestly, you're 100% right. People that haven't been out to Texas, they won't know, but trust me, people will go out there. Trust me, they will.
Oh,
like I told you, I was in Texas for 4 years, so trust me, like people will go out there. I do want to ask you, what is an ideal like tenant your profile, because you said like, you want to have somebody who's already, you want to have a tenant already before the facility get built. What's going to be the ideal tenant for you? How many megawatts does that first anchor look like?
The first anchor, I think, we've been asked to stand up, a minimum of 100, 150 megawatts by Q4 26. And so, our first power island is going to be about 400 megs, 450 megs. So, and that's a lot of power. So I would say the first customer is going to be looking at, how quickly can you ramp up to 450? And so ideally, and you could have multiple tenants on the same campus too, by the way. We can build multiple data halls. That's not rocket science.
And you got space to do it too. So
plenty of land.
Yeah. And so how far are you close to that first tenant right now?
I would say, again, we're in active discussions. We put the LOI out. What's interesting when we signed the letter of intent with that name, we can't say who it is. It was interesting because the amount of due diligence that they did with a international engineering firm was so insightful, Kenny. It's amazing, but but then it's funny how others have entered the race as well. So we have multiple horses that we can, they're basically pitching us why they should be there. It's interesting. Because it's funny, they're
love to hear that.
Well, yeah, they're like,
you're getting pitched. That means you're doing something right.
Well, it's interesting, Kenny, because they get it that everyone was so focused on how do I get grid connectivity? That was the main thing. I want grid. If I heard that one more time, I was just gonna do something. I don't know, but it wasn't gonna be pretty. But then all of a sudden, like the last 3 months, to be fair, you've had this slow transition to the acceptance of, I'm not going to get grid for 3 to 5 years. And then if I do in Texas, now because of the new legislative law, now I've got to build the power behind it too. So why wouldn't I just do the behind the meter first and then get grid? And so really the behind the meter acceptance is really kind of coming to fruition. So
you already got a head start.
No, we've already got the head start. The group that we partner.
You already got the head start. That's amazing. That's amazing. So I know we can't speak about but the letter of intent, I love hearing that. You know what I mean? So what is your cash runway looks like?
It's going to look good. That's one thing. We're not going to put out any sort of forward projections right now. I don't feel comfortable doing that, but we will. Shortly. No, we will shortly. But I think but Fermi, when they did the IPO, so I think what's interesting, you can kind of look at their financials and look through their S1, and so let's just say, 1.1, 1.2, gigawatts, and what they're kind of looking at with their tenant. And you can extrapolate some of those numbers. I mean, it's going to be, there's going to be, some bookends on either that. I don't know what they're charging their customer. I don't know what that customer is, what the deal is cut, right? But they've set the numbers in there. The one thing in the S1 I didn't quite get was over what length of time that revenue would be coming in. Is that annual? Is that over the length of the contract? I don't know. So there were some questions I had on the S1 with that. But I think, one thing that we looked at, so for instance, when APLD announced their deal with CoreWeave, I think they were very transparent on what that revenue looked like, which I thought was really good. And so I think, we'll be doing something quite similar in following APLD's footsteps, because I think they provide a really good basis for how people should report. And yes. I really commend Wes and his team. Again, we bring them up all the time because, again, they've been there and done it. And so, we're not looking to reinvent the wheel. We do it a little bit differently because of our oil and gas background. But ultimately, we're both providing power. That's what we do. And, so I think from our nuance, we're just damn good at what we do with natural gas. We're very good at that. And by the way, I don't think people understand how much natural gas is in the Permian Basin. It is so just because you turn on CNBC and you see NYMEX nat gas at $3.50. Do you know what gas prices were in the Permian Basin last Saturday, Sunday, Monday? No, negative $7.70. You are having to pay the midstream companies to take your gas. That is how much gas is out here. People don't understand that because everyone already, there's regional spot pricing. So again, Waha pricing, Waha is based in the Permian Basin. That's what we're doing because it's so freaking cheap. It's your fuel stock. It's your feedstock for power. So why wouldn't you choose the location, right, that has the cheapest feedstock to create the power? I don't care if you're looking at nuclear, power, wind, gas, whatever power you want, hydro, pick your poison. What does it cost you to make the electrons, right? But if your feedstock is freaking free, sorry, but it's darn free, then
you're okay, man. You're okay. Keep going.
That's crazy. But think about that. Negative $7.70.
Yeah.
People don't understand that, Kenny.
Yeah. No, not a lot of people understand that. It's like, remember a few years ago when the barrel was like at zero and it was like negative?
Oh, I was in the garage working out during COVID and I saw negative because trust me, we have oil wells and I was like, I guess we're not making money today.
Yeah, I don't know if a lot of people remember that, man. It was like, oh, wow. I don't think I ever seen that negative barrel, but people don't understand that. It's like, once you get to that spot, you're pretty much asking people to please take this from us.
Well, I think that's and Kenny, that's what's interesting. You see so many people now, and I don't think people realize how many companies like ourselves are in the Permian Basin. They're just not public. They're private. They're private equity backed because, right outside our company window here, they're flaring gas because they can't move the gas. And so the issue is here in the Permian Basin is we have a glut. So there's an egress problem with our basin. We produce too much gas with too little pipeline takeaway capacity. And with that being said, that's why the prices are negative. Because oversupplied. You can't move it. So what are you going to do with it? We're going to make electricity.
Yeah. That's right. That's lovely. That's lovely.
It ain't rocket science. It's like,
it's really not. It's really not. You're 100% right, man. But the show, we're getting close to that 30-minute mark. We're probably gonna run over, but I want you to be able to tell, like me as an investor, as investors that are listening to this, what are like 2 or 3 catalysts they can look for like next year, 2026?
I wouldn't even say looking at the Q4. I mean, we're going to announce. We'll announce a tenant. That's I think our investors.
You're going to announce a tenant in Q4.
Yeah, we'll definitely announce a tenant. Because I think we owe our shareholders that. We've teased them long enough with the letter of intent. We're just making sure that we're doing things cautiously. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah,
I don't want to be spoken poorly upon at X or in stock twits or Benzinga and be like, well, this guy's just a blowhard. Yeah. So I think, milestone 1, let's announce who we're going to work with. Okay. I think that's going to set the foundation on milestone 2, 3, and 4. So obviously, step one is once we have the tenant identified, that also sets in motion everything else for FID. Okay. So essentially, you're talking about multiple things. Your power generation being one. Your line taps to those 3 gas tap lines. They're not cheap, by the way. I mean those. So I mean, you have to do this sequentially. So in order for us to hit our Q4 2026 power ramp, we have to have that thing, and we have to have the tenant announced relatively soon.
Yes.
So I think that's going to be a major one. But I think I think we're.
What 2026 look like for you? What is that beautiful brain of yours that came up with this idea that's really changing the landscape? What you got, man? Because at this point, you combining both, it's probably I can see you creating. This is the new way to do things.
Well, and it's funny. I wear this hat because it's so funny. My wife's a smart one, by the way. So I mean, this hat pretty much says. That's why I wore it today. I wore it on another show because it's exactly what we're doing. It's my cowboy hat. But really, we're really trying to be the bridge, right, between Silicon Valley and Houston. So you think of Silicon Valley, you think of trucker hats, young kids, digital. Houston's all the cowboy hats and the oil and gas guys, right? So we're the bridge between that gap. We're bringing both together. How do we coexist to take our oil and gas, make power, and create, AI data centers? That's what we're doing. And so think of us that
you're keeping. I wouldn't be surprised if an oil titan come and visit you for keeping the oil business booming for another 100 years.
You know what's interesting, Kenny? It's the Permian Basin. I've been out here my entire life, born and raised. And I've seen this, I'm 50 years old. What's interesting is I've seen this evolution of this oil field, this gas field change. When everyone thought the field was depleted, and then horizontal drilling came into play. And then this became, we produce 40% of the US energy out of this little town that comes out of here. I mean, and then ideally, I think we're going to be producing more electricity. This will be essentially, in my opinion, the data center, corridor, because cheap power. People are going to go where there's cheap power. That's a fact. That's one of your major cost factors of running data.
Yeah, it's pretty much what controls the data right now. Cheap power is going to be everything right now.
Cheap power and how quickly can you get it?
100%.
So those are your 2 factors. Those are your 2 driving factors. You can do that. And in the Permian Basin, that I'm telling you, this going to be data hub central. You'll see it.
Guys, I gotta say, man, for the guys who's listening out there, Will, thank you so much for coming on the show. Boy, I'm already excited for Q4. I'm definitely excited for next year.
Wait till Landman. I think season 3 is going to be about data centers and Billy Bob Thornton doing something with data centers. What?
Yeah, of course, 100%. I think people don't realize how big data centers is going to be in the next 5 to 7 years. Yeah, like it's going to be pretty much everywhere. Like you're not only in the race, you're probably one of the leading factors, and you're probably undiscovered right now. Your company is definitely undervalued. You have runway. I see a lot of runway for you. I know a lot of people when I put it out there that you was coming on the show, a lot of people said this is company that can revolutionary. You already have a tenant. I can't wait for Q4. I can't wait for 2026. After some of these stuff happens in a couple months, we got to give you back on the show.
Oh, 100%. Because you know what, my shareholders. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I'm a shareholder too. If this doesn't work, I'm sorry. I put everything in here. So I'm very much aligned with shareholders. If this doesn't work,
so we don't have to worry about dilution risk since you're a shareholder as well.
Oh, trust me. Every time we issue shares, you don't think I realize how that impacts my holdings. I think having a CEO that's actually stuck all their I put my money where my mouth is. And
I like that.
I mean, this doesn't work. Well, it will work. I mean, at the end of the day, listen, I wouldn't have taken the risk. I mean, listen, at my age, you take calculated risks. You don't take unnecessary risks. So
man, I don't really, to tell you the truth, man, the strategic behind this is very calculated, man. It's very, very calculated. You bought land, you got big enough space, you got tenants lined up. You know what I mean? The pipe is right there. You know that energy, cheap power is going to be needed for the AI space. You position yourself well. Everything's pretty much calculated here. You did a really good job. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying there's not risk.
Oh yeah.
I'm not saying not risk, but like that's why like I do these shows, because people don't realize you need a great leader with a great vision to be able to take the right steps and make the calculated choice. Companies don't run on just as people. You need a leader. I had a friend of mine. He told me this a long time ago, and it's part of the New York Giants. So Bill Parcells won a Super Bowl, right? Bill Parcells leaves, got the exact same team, right, with a new coach, and the coach said, "Well, they're grown men; they can do it themselves." That year the Giants were awful, but it was the same Super Bowl team. You know what I mean?
I get it. Oh yeah.
Bill Parcells comes back and realizes it's leadership. It all that matters about leadership. So to me, you're doing the right thing. To me, you sound kind of like, and I don't know if you like him. I know people don't like Elon Musk. You got everything in it. You're thinking of different ways. You're outside the box. You're doing great things.
Tried to buy our helium. Yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Elon Musk? I mean, come on, man. So I bought my ex-wife Tesla. Who doesn't like?
You know what I mean? So like, where you're thinking outside the box, man. You're seeing the future. You're in the space. You're in the race. You're way ahead of the game.
Oh, Kenny, you know what's really cool, real quick? What you talked about this, right? Is a team. So my sports background, and listen, it's a team. My board of directors. You want to talk about having? I hate calling them a board because they're my team. I mean, we speak multiple times during the day with different guys. PJ Lee on my board was one of the biggest Bitcoin miners. But no one realizes that. So his ability to understand, because all this AI,
his ability to understand energy,
they've migrated
energy to mine Bitcoin, man.
I mean, this PJ's he's like this wealth of knowledge, and being able to call him up and saying, "Hey, what would you do?" Because they were running hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of megawatts across the country for mining back in 17, 18. And so it's interesting. So, I mean, you can just, again, all these guys were Bitcoin miners for the most part. They have transitioned to AI data centers. And then, so, I mean, it's a team effort. That's why I love. So we have, because I don't know everything. And so, we have a team we rely on. And I think that's the beauty about any company. I don't care what company it is. Listen, man, at the end of the day, I take my ideas, I run it past my team. If it makes sense, great, we implement it. If it doesn't, we just toss it. But you know what? Everyone's incentivized on my board via stock. If this works, they're gonna make money. If it doesn't, they don't make a dime. So
we have to close on that note, man. Dude, I love this conversation. I love your energy. I'm rooting for you. There's a lot of people rooting for you. To me as an investor, what you're doing, I'm with you on the long haul. I know like you already ahead of the game, and that's what I like to hear. People that are ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. And you're right. Behind the meter is where the game's at. You're 100% right. And then you got it going. Cheap power. You got the land. I love it.
Just get the tenant in there and start building. Then we'll go. And then we'll go do another one. Rinse and repeat.
Hey, thanks everyone for listening to Marathon Money Inside the Ticker. Thanks, Will, for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. We'll see you in a few months, man. Let's make those things happen. Peace.
Let's do it. Look for it. Take care, sir.